all of this data that I've just mentioned shows that South Africa's middle class is small, pessimistic, and increasingly under severe pressure.
In many respects, the middle class in South Africa is a benchmark of the country's success as a young democracy. Its size and growth has significant social, economic, and political implications. However, over the recent years, the middle class has been under severe strain and is in fact in a great decline. Here to speak more on this is research analyst Gerbrandt van Heerden. Gary, what do the latest trends tell us about the middle class in South Africa?
Hello, Bheki. You're absolutely right. In South Africa, the middle class is used as an indicator in order to judge how successful government policy has been. And especially it is noteworthy to look at what has happened to the Black South African middle class, because it really shows whether the government has been successful in creating wealth in the last few decades. Now, South Africa's middle class has grown, but the South African Black middle class remains small. For example, only 4% of Black South African households can afford a bond. Only 5% of Black South Africans have a university degree. Only 11% of Black South Africans have access to a private medical aid, in other words, good quality healthcare. And only 11% of Black South African households are able to spend more than 10,000 Rand per month. So all this shows is that the Black South African middle class is still relatively small, and much more needs to be done in order to improve the lives of the general population. Now, debt counselor agency Debt Busters also found recently that the middle income segment in South Africa is seeing their debt levels spiraling out of control. So since last year, debt counseling has increased by 18%. Also, Experian data has showed that overall consumer debt defaults have mainly been driven by debt defaults in vehicle loans, which is a secure lending product. And that is indicative of a middle class under severe pressure, because it's usually wealthier South Africans that can afford secure lending products such as a home loan or a vehicle loan.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
Also worth noting is that data from Brand Maps, which surveyed over 30,000 South Africans that earn at least 10,000 Rand per month. That data from Brand Maps has shown that the South African middle class is increasingly pessimistic and looking for a ticket out of the country. So in their survey, they were able to establish that only 30% of respondents actually feel positive about the country's future. Also, a quarter of respondents indicated that they are either likely or very likely to immigrate in the next 5 years. So all of this data that I've just mentioned shows that South Africa's middle class is small, pessimistic, and increasingly under severe pressure.
Indeed, Kari. So the picture is definitely not rosy. And let us address the elephant in the room, and that is that of the lockdown, which has had a severe impact on employment opportunities in the country, as well as that of the middle class. What are some of the factors that have contributed to the decline in the middle class that you have seen?
You raise a good point, Bheki. Yes, the lockdown has had a very negative impact on the middle classes. However, South Africa's middle class has been on the decline years before the pandemic reached our shores. Our GDP per capita, for example, has been steadily declining since 2014. And this is basically because of an economic lockdown that the country has entered more than a decade ago due to bad government policy, and because the government has neglected critical institutions and sectors. Secondly, South Africa suffers from a high legislative burden. It is because of onerous business regulations implemented by the government, frequent demand for the increase in wages, unreliable energy supply, and broad-based BEE requirements that have really made it difficult for businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses in South Africa, to operate in a sustainable manner. And that it is because of these reasons that South Africa also has a very high business failure rate, one of the highest in the world, actually. Another thing to also take note of, and that is also applying pressure on the middle classes, is the fact that corruption and political appointments has really caused our civil service to decline in quality. And that's why we've seen service delivery across many municipalities in the country deteriorate significantly. And this has forced many middle-class households to fork out additional money to get access to proper service delivery from the private sector. And I'm talking specifically about private education, private security, and private hospitals and private healthcare. All of this costs money. It's a double tax essentially on the middle classes. And this is another contributing factor why the middle classes are under strain.
You've painted and elaborated quite clearly that over the past 10 years, the policies that have been enacted by the ruling government have been detrimental to the middle class, and that the lockdown has exacerbated this trend. But what does this mean for South Africa? What does a decline in the middle class mean for the country?
So there are a number of ramifications of a declining middle class, but I think two of the most important points to look at is, firstly, a decline in the middle class means a decline in our tax base. We only have a handful of middle income earners and high income earners that are carrying the country with their tax money. And if the middle class declines, that means that the government will have less revenue from tax. And this means that there's going to be less money for service delivery, for the maintenance of infrastructure, and to uphold South Africa's expansive welfare system, upon which many poorer South Africans depend on to get by every month. And so this all could lead to even greater social instability, which could manifest in wide-scale riots and looting, the likes that we saw in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. So that's the first major repercussion of a declining middle class. Secondly, the fact that many middle-class South Africans are immigrating or are indicating that they want to immigrate, that means that South Africa is going to lose a huge number of highly qualified, highly skilled people. And this is going to have dramatic impact on the country's ability to retain talent and to create even more job opportunities. So unless the government is able to turn this around and implement the type of reforms that will be conducive for a middle class to grow, we're just going to see our middle class continue to shrink and wither away.
Indeed, Harry, and this is a point missed by most analysts, the correlation between policy and that of economic outcome. In this particular analysis that you've provided, that of the decline in the middle class. If you liked this analysis from us, the Center for Risk Analysis, please click on the link below to our 30-day free trial, where you will get access to all of our other products that we offer. Until next time, take care.